BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions. I'm gonna have to get this out on March 20th, aren't I? Well, first of all, happy birthday to Chopin from T Zuganic. The official Beyblade Twitter spells it Zuganic with a U instead of two O's. I wonder if that's a Romanji thing, since Japan has a hiragana for O, but I'm not sure about the kanji. Don't know if they would double it. Give the girl another win, you cowards. Second, episode 121 dropped, and I'm sure you want me to talk about it, even though I'm not Japanese in the slightest. Honestly, with what little I was able to see, I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot to try and analyze, but seriously, I have no idea how anyone's gonna find these episodes online. I assume people have a VPN, but apparently people get screenshots from the episode on YouTube, so maybe that's how people have been able to watch it. But the previews had a lot of people speculating on what was going to happen or who was going to show up. Basically, episode 121, the Dragon's Whereabouts say Executive Director Gigatani faces Khrome and forces him into a Bay battle. Shiedu Kaminari Pendragon appears and takes on the battle in his place, and Khrome heads off towards Ekusu. Shiedu struggles against Gigatani's superhuman abilities achieved through underhanded tactics. Concerned, Gigatani closes in on Shiedu, but it is Khrome who stops him after turning back. This time, Khrome challenges him to a battle. Meanwhile, an unexpected figure quietly approaches behind one Kurasu, who is watching Khrome and the others from afar. So, when I heard about this preview, I saw people speculating on who the unexpected figure was going to be. I think we got this before 120 dropped, so most of us didn't know that the Shiroboshi school is coming back until 120's preview came out. And in the moment that did, everyone was blinging up the floodgates about Omega possibly returning, and it turns out they were correct on that. Good job, y'all. But between this and the last 2 weeks, we also had two Kurasu debut in the manga. And with both X and sometimes I believe bursts, there would be times where a character in the manga was introduced and the anime would introduce them in an episode that would be airing around the same time. And in the episodes, it would build up to their debut in the manga properly. Because that's what happened to 5 with the Pakun episode. Like, I know I made a video about it 2 days later, but when 5 debuted, he defeated Pakun, which made sense because usually the anime tries to give at least one character a win before they eventually lose, since they have the advantage of more episodes. And in the chapter he debuted in, the Kurasu family made Meteor Dragoon. And even though the siblings are no pushover, if you're going to debut 2 Beyblades and one of them belongs to the Tala, or the villain rival of the generation, it would make more sense to give the villain rival, aka Ryugu Khrome in this case, the win. So if anyone was to assume that 2 was the unexpected figure, I would not blame you. Heck, the opening for Invincible spoiled 1 and 5 long before we figured out who they were going to be in the manga, and we just have to speculate they were right about who was who. But once we found out Zodiac was returning, yeah, Omega had to make the most sense in that regard. That being said, I had to follow some Japanese accounts to figure exactly what the order of these moments were, because even the English accounts of people who posted YouTube clips of the episodes don't always upload them in chronological order, which I'm not saying you have to. I'm just pointing out it's difficult for me since I can't watch the full episode until it's subbed. But yeah, that episode preview title kind of lied, since yeah, we know Gigatani was ordered by 1 to stop Khrome and Ekusu from meeting, since Kurasu wants to use Khrome. Even though I argue that for developing their future blades, wouldn't you want more combo data of the 2 strongest Dragon Bladers? Okay, 1 exists. 2 out of the 3 strongest Dragon Bladers. I want to know exactly how Shiedu found out about this, because it sounds like Persona told him Khrome and Kurasu were trying to meet up, or Shiedu realized Gigatani wants to control Khrome and keep him as an affiliate to Zero's organization and wants to put a stop to that. So I can get where he's coming from. As for this fight, the moment I noticed they were going to make Gigatani a blader, I realized I am never going to have the time to make a Battles for X for Season 3 I would want to see happen or think should happen. Because outside of Shiedu versus Khrome, they're probably going to do everything I think of except King versus Mosey. And that would work better for last season than this season, so I wouldn't even consider it. But because I feel like an underrated aspect of the season, Fusion to an extent, and the downsides to some seasons like Dynamite Battle, is the variety. If the variety is lacking in the matchups, then the show runs out of character dynamics to play with if they're just choosing not to use them. or they're wasting pretty good story potential and character development. And if you watch this channel, you know from my perspective that Gigatani is one of the key problems of Pendragon's mental instability and the fact that he's a terrible coach. So for any one of them to put him in his place in the ring after they rightfully got him fired for his abuse of power sits perfectly well with me. Unfortunately, I forgot that he did not use Bahamu Blitz yet, so I came into this episode hoping that Shiedu was going to get a victorious revenge against all the mental abuse Gigatani put on him. As for the fight, Gigatani versus Shiedu was pretty good. Like, Bahamu Blitz is a CX blade, most of which have advantages over UX blade. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. So using the same gimmick one could exploit shows Gigatani's at least adept of the sport, but we have to give Shiedu massive props. In a fight, this is his fourth opponent where he's attempted or used Dragonic Break Z. I believe the order is Baito, then Burn. Then after that was King, and now Gigatani. And after he succeeded against King, it's dope he actually managed to use it pretty effectively in this fight. It's just that he's fighting Bahamu Blitz, and the bit most likely helped Gigatani's new blade survive the impact based on the subs. I also like Gigatani's line of showing Shiedu the adult world, because he treats the sport as a business model only adults understand, and how he views the kids as props for profit. And Gigatani's clearly an abusive boss, because what kind of grown man would tell a teenager he's going to bring the spear? And I know that's the title of him saying, oh, I'm going to bring the spear by, his special move, the Extreme Dash, but like, he's telling that to a minor. Plus, I really like that in both of his battles in this episode, the avatar for Bahamut blasts fire out of its mouth, which from one angle you see from Shiedu's back as the flames overwhelm him, but in terms of surprise, I'm going to talk about the Khrome one for later. And I forgot about this plot point, but in Season 2, where Takumi had fought some underpros who used Terra Swing, and Bear Scratch, and the underpros, who I believe the dub is calling them Shadow Pros, were using wearable AI launchers to boost their performances. And this might be a hot take, but I kind of noticed that, okay, I don't want to say the adults have an unfair advantage because they're older, but at the same time, Gigatani has both technology and he can buff himself up like Klaus from the Metal Saga. So I'm debating on whether or not his buff form is technically cheating, as it is, since he has an advantage that he can control unlike Free. And if he did not use the AI launcher, would Shiedu have won that fight? Because Bahamu Blitz is that durable, but yet the only people who have had their Beyblade ever survive taking a hit from a Dragonic Break has been Ekusu and Omega. And now we can add Gigatani to that list. And I don't think anyone has pointed that out until now. Now, I don't know everything that was said between Shiedu and Gigatani after the battle because I'm not Japanese, and it looks like Gigatani was either trying to goad him into joining Kurasu. I'm not sure, but it's nice to see Khrome actually defend Shiedu from their former coach, battling Gigatani. And Gigatani uses his new Extreme Dash with Bahamu Blitz, Giga Megiddo, and I find it interesting because Giga is also part of the first half of his name, while Megiddo is the name of an ancient city called Megiddo in northern Israel, which does not surprise me, because apparently it's recognized as a state of Armageddon, and Israel's not exactly fond of doing things that doesn't hurt people. However, Meteor Dragoon is able to use his power to push back Blitz Bahamut's blade and send it into the air, going to the extreme line and slamming it just as it lands before it can continue its rotation. Awesome. As for Khrome and Shiedu's reunion, while I couldn't understand everything and I hope Shiedu isn't going to backtrack and not believe he can face Khrome one day, can we just say thank Khrome generally apologize? Because as interesting as Khrome is as the villain rival of the series, yeah, what he did to Shiedu is abhorrent, and actually making up for it by defending him and apologizing speaks volumes. Because using someone as a means in order to replace someone in your heart, only for them to end up with identity issues, is not something you can just walk away from. And while I still want them to battle, it is generally refreshing for Shiedu and Shagetu to get acknowledgement from him for trying to keep Pendragon alive when their own sponsors willing to drop them or screw them over in any way. Because if one of them couldn't defeat Gigatani, at least someone else in the team probably could. As for One versus Shagetu, he does recognize her as multi-sister, and it seems she's trying to tell him that Pendragon's strength is something no one can get in the way of, and yet she's able to sense the danger of his aura. Like, at this point, there's gotta be someone whose aura can at least rival one that isn't Ekusu or Khrome. Then we get a long time no see from Omega, who tells Shagetu not to act so tough, and now she's not going to criticize her. I believe she brings up something about how she has the spirit of someone who will protect her comrades, and I believe Omega also claims she's the strongest blader on Earth, but she's not a pro anymore. Which, I mean, I guess that allows her to battle in anything outside of the X Tower. I guess it doesn't matter if she wins or loses this fight, but because, you know, we kind of need to keep one active, I say make the battle at least a tie or no results. Meanwhile, Lance as well as Million defeats 3 and 4 in later 2, while Tenka finishes off 8. I didn't even realize that this wasn't in the last episode, but we end up with Bird hugging Tenka, thanking her for his help, and I think she teases him about making a big fuss. But Khrome versus Ekusu is finally here. I think the one thing we can all agree on is we were not baited on this one. Now, there is debate about whether or not the manga arc of Season 2 as well as the anime for Season 2 basically tricked people into thinking we were going to get this only for it to not be the case. I don't inherently agree with that because when we got the image fight of Drawn versus Impact, it painted us a picture that Khrome was going to win that fight, but he wants to beat Ekusu at his strongest, but felt Impact Drake's tipped the scales a bit too much, only for that debate to get muddled when Ekusu used Drawn Sword to win against Omega, and it seems like Ekusu was unsubconsciously holding back all this time in some of his fights based on how he did against Omega. You want to know what's my hottest take? I actually think for next episode, Khrome should win this. Again, I'm going to need the full translated subs in order to make a verdict about this, but what I will say is that when you look at Chrome's story from the reveal of his actions in Season 1 all the way to Season 3, you could make the argument that this storyline is all about him trying to figure out and navigate his emotions towards Ekusu, constantly being manipulated and swayed on that by other people who clearly don't give a damn about him, ranging from giving him a Beyblade that would make him feel like he's his best, to his dual perception of wanting to defeat his rival, but also wanting to make sure that he becomes strong enough to that he can be the only one to defeat him, but also make sure that no one beats him because he doesn't want what happened to him to also happen towards Ekusu. And that kind of makes sense. The only thing I'm concerned about is I don't know which Beyblades is Ekusu going to use, because for Khrome, he's likely going to use Meteor, but I don't know if Ekusu is going to use Sword, Brave, or Strike, because Khrome has defeated, or at least tied with everything but Sword, yet he's never fought Brave, and I'm hearing rumors that Strike is going to debut in the anime, but I don't think we've seen Multi actually work on it, because the second chapter confirmed she was going to start working on their new CX Expand Blades. But I've always been a little YMV on whether or not they're going to include it that late. That being said, they have changed the timeline of when the characters get their Beyblades, and I haven't proven wrong before, so we'll see, I guess. Thought I was going to have a lot less to say, but if I don't get a video done on Happy World Beyblade Day, I'm going to feel like a massive idiot. So thanks for the support if you watch it. If you made it this far, type World Beyblade Day in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Check out the Bad Girls video. I want more opinions on that, and BIP for Productions, signing off.